My husband and I quit our jobs. We sold our house. We sold our 2 cars. We decided to go traveling.
What was that like to have that experience during COVID?
I think having traveled so much all my life, I feel a very deep confidence that whatever comes my way, I can figure it out. People really having hard times during the pandemic, that actually wasn't our experience, which we felt a little guilty about at times. Everything is possible if you, number one, believe it's possible. And number 2, are willing to figure out how it's possible.
You've traveled a lot in the world and you chose to settle in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
What was that decision process? Yeah, why?
The world is an interesting place and I feel like I want to see it. I want to experience it.
So are you 50 now? How is that humanly possible? Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in a different country? Me too. You're about to meet somebody who didn't just wonder that, she lived it. India, Dubai, Argentina, and now Spain, not to mention traveling basically everywhere else that you can imagine. When you listen to Jane, what I want you to really hear is her self-belief. And I use that word really intentionally. Belief versus confidence. Think about the way that Jane talks about her experience and how she kind of believes that she's going to be able to figure things out no matter what. How she hasn't visited a place before she lands there, but she knows she'll get settled in just fine. I was really fascinated after I listened to her story, and it made me not only inspired to try to show up a little bit more like Jane every single day, but also to open my mind to what is possible and how we can really truly be citizens of the whole world. One of the other things that's super interesting about this interview is the way that Jane and her husband approached planning to leave their corporate gigs behind and move abroad. She has put together one of the most considerate and thoughtful financial plans. So listen closely for all of that. I hope that you will enjoy this conversation as much as I did. I'm also such a fan of what Jane is doing now in the travel planning business that I decided to hire her to plan my family's vacation for next fall. So maybe I'll do a follow-up episode after all of that gets underway. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this episode and I will see you back next week for our next way out. Jane, let's just start with this. Tell us who you are and where you are at this point in your life.
Okay, so my name's Jane Hermstedt and I'm living in Spain right now with my family. I've started a travel agency which specializes in off the beaten path, sort of niche, curious travel. And I've been doing that. I started that a year ago. I live there with my husband and our 10-year-old son. We wanted to give our son a really world education, teach him languages, expose him to different cultures. So that is what we're doing right now. But before that, we took a hiatus of a few years to live in Argentina. This whole journey started early in 2020 when I left my corporate job in Kansas City. I was working as director of leadership development for AMC. And my husband and I quit our jobs. We sold our house. We sold our 2 cars. We decided to go traveling. We moved into this ex-military RV with tires that were taller than our son. They were just enormous. We drove up to Alaska and Canada. At this point, I was still working a little bit remotely. I actually quit my job, but my boss asked me if I wanted to keep working part-time. That didn't work out great on the roads of Alaska and Canada that had very little connectivity. And then after that, we had plans to move the truck down to South America and to keep traveling there. We changed out the truck because the truck was super unreliable. And we had a new truck that was in the port in Galveston. This was in 2020. We flew to the Galapagos. The truck was supposed to follow us. And then the truck never came because everything got closed down because of COVID. So when COVID started, we just made it to Argentina after the Galapagos. And we had the choice of staying or going back to the US or hunkering down in Argentina. And we were in Patagonia. It was a beautiful place. We decided to stay. So we spent 2 years of the pandemic in Argentina and then moved to Spain after that. And now we're based in Spain, where I've opened up a travel agency and completely changed course.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay, so let me ask you a couple clarifying questions. You left your corporate job. Did you say it was 2020 or when was it?
Yeah, it was late 2019, early 2020.
So how long did it take you to go through North America and Canada?
That was about 5 or 6 months.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you had this really cool adventure in the US. COVID hadn't happened yet. You fly to Galapagos Islands. Your RV doesn't show up. You continue on to Argentina. How did you get down there? Just flying?
Yeah, we flew down.
Okay. So you pivoted away from the overland travel.
We pivoted away pretty quickly because we knew the truck wasn't going to come. And while we were waiting for the truck, we rented a house and it was amazing. And I thought like, well, this is very nice to live in this house here by the lake in Patagonia. I can do this rather than living out of the truck. I'm perfectly fine. So it was a really easy pivot.
What was that like to have that experience during COVID and to be in a different country? Were you scared at all?
It was a little nerve wracking at first because we didn't know, you don't know the road not taken, you don't know what's going to happen. And so a country like Argentina has had a lot of political instability in the past. So we didn't know, it could have gone one of two ways, it seemed like. One way was that we're in the most natural place in the world, which is sort of the healthiest, safest place, very easy to have lots of distance. Like it was like the freshest air, the freshest place you could imagine. So the best case scenario was we're in this great place to like lie low during the pandemic. But the other possibility was that Argentina has a history of being a police state and of disappearing people and, being very harsh with controlling its population when it's wanted to, not that long ago, like in the 70s and the 80s. And so could it go that way? So we thought really long and hard, and we didn't have long to decide because when we found out the borders were closing, we had like less than a week's notice and we were in Patagonia. And just to get to the border where we could fly, get to Buenos Aires or to get to Chile was like 4 days driving from where we were and very few flights and logistically really complicated. But so we had to decide really quickly and we decided to stay. And that ended up being the best decision. And we had an amazing 2 years. So like while we were hearing all these stories of, people really having hard times during the pandemic, that actually wasn't our experience, which we felt a little guilty about at times. I mean, so for example, the town that we were staying in is called Bariloche, which has the biggest ski resort in South America. And after a few months of having it closed, they opened it, but only for the people living in the town.
Oh, wow.
So we had record snow. Well, I don't know if it was record, but it was a lot. High snow, the biggest ski resort in South America for like a tiny number of people. My son learned to ski there. We went up there all the time. All of the ski instructors were offering private lessons, like, because everyone was trying to work. So we had this fabulous experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely better than being stuck and scared in a big population center. Totally different.
It was still like, there was still a lot to navigate. So like Argentina also had one of the longest lockdowns in the world. So they were up there with, I think there were just a couple other countries that did it as long. But like the Argentine culture is like a little bit subversive. So there were all these WhatsApp groups about, how to navigate around the lockdowns and things like that. Like the culture of the Argentine people was very much like, how do we work around this? So we ended up doing several really big road trips of like, several weeks at a time. And we had like Iguazu Falls, for example, with like hardly anybody there and these beautiful attractions. We just had to do a lot of paperwork, but it was still possible. And I mean, I think it's one of these cases where if you're willing to put some effort into it, like other expats weren't traveling because they didn't want to go through all of the headache of the bureaucracy. But if you were willing to do it, which I don't mind because I really like to travel and I had everything printed out, then you kind of have the country to yourself. So
that's amazing. I feel like I have so many more questions I want to ask you about your Argentinian experience, but I also don't want to shortchange everything else I'm going to learn about you. But I will ask because it's so interesting to me that you have traveled. But sure, we'll get to this. But you've traveled a lot in the United States. You've traveled a lot in the world. 2 years in Argentina, in what sounds like this picturesque, beautiful place, and you chose to settle in Spain.
mm-hmm.
What was that decision process? Yeah, why? Why?
So where we were living in Argentina was remote, right? So to drive from Buenos Aires, at least at the pace that my husband likes to drive, just about 5 hours a day, took 4 days, right? It's far and there's so much to see in Argentina and everything is far. So it felt like for 2 years, it was amazing and we couldn't really go a lot of places anyway. But in terms of like long term, it's a lot to like every time we want to go somewhere to, have it be that time consuming. The second part was education. So I think there are really good educational opportunities in some of the bigger cities of Argentina, definitely in Buenos Aires. But where we were, it wasn't really great. And our son was little at the time. He was in first grade. But like in terms of staying there long term, I mean, I was looking at what some of our friends' kids were doing as fifth graders, for example, and it looked like what I would expect them to be doing in third grade. And this was at different schools. So, yeah, we could have, I was doing like some supplemental work with them anyway. I don't mind doing that, but I'd like something a little bit stronger.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and so while we were in Argentina, I was working on getting Italian citizenship. So this is a long, slow process that they have actually made just in the last couple of months very difficult. So if I hadn't gotten it when I did, I probably couldn't get it now because I got Italian citizenship through my great grandparents on my father's side. And Italy has changed the laws now that you can't go past your grandparents. And they also are adding new requirements that you pay taxes in Italy and that you spend some time living there and like different things to make it more strict. So people like me don't just get their citizenship, but they didn't have that. And so our plan was always to come to Europe after Argentina. We just thought maybe we'd be in Argentina 3 years or 4 years instead of 2. But so we did this whole long process of getting my citizenship and my son's. My husband can't get it, but while we were in Argentina. So it was a really good use of the time there. And we ended up getting the citizenship just a month or 2 before we were hoping to go to Spain. So the timing worked out perfectly.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let me go back into your background. We're going to talk about your upbringing and everything else, and then we'll get into your life in Spain and what you're doing now in your travel agency.
Yeah.
Sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. So tell me about what your upbringing was like. What were you like as a kid? Tell me about your parents.
So I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas, which is a college town. University of Kansas is here. My dad was a math professor at the university, and my mom is from Hungary. So I think that aspect ends up being like a really important part in why I ended up kind of traveling and doing what I do. Because my mom growing up in Hungary, she moved to the US when she was 27, when she married my dad, like really opened up this cultural world and exposure that I wouldn't have had otherwise, that wasn't common in Kansas growing up in like the 1980s. And what happened was, we lived in Hungary for a year when I was a kid because my dad was doing research at the university there for a year. So I went to a British school there. I don't have a ton of memories of it, but I don't think you have to remember things for them to impact you, right? And after that, we would go almost every year to visit my mom's relatives. So it ended up being like the key event of my summer every year. I would like count down the days until we were going to Hungary. I would there was a Mop and Tour travel agency in Lawrence. So again, this is the 80s. Everything is like in offices. I would go and I would pick up all these brochures about Central Europe because we would always do a trip from there. So we would go like from Hungary to Vienna, or we would go to Greece, or we would do like something. So I would pick up all these brochures. I would put together presentations for my parents about where I thought we should go and what I thought we should do. And they were very patient. They would always like listen very, very intently to my proposals. And so like, I don't know. I think that with that exposure, I created this idea in my head that travel was doable, number one, exciting, interesting, and like something that was possible, even when other people weren't doing it. So I would come back to Kansas and I would try to tell my friends about the cool stuff that I'd done in the summer and realize very quickly, like nobody really cared. So I kind of learned not to talk about it, right? Like that it was like, that's great. Here's what I did all summer. Like, oh, okay, we're done. So we're done talking about that. Okay, that's fine. And that didn't necessarily change that much when we got older. There was I still see that. Like we still come back from this is a whole other subject, but like we still come back from like living in Spain and see people, and a lot of people aren't that curious about, so how's life in Spain? Or, it's the same as it was in fourth grade.
It's so hard for me to wrap my head around that because to me, obviously we're talking because I find it very interesting, like the things,
Yeah.
these experiences, right? It's always so interesting to me how different people are, I guess, and what intrigues them and what doesn't. Because to me, I'd probably want to hear all the things that you saw and experienced. And I definitely want to hear about Spain.
My theory is that like if you haven't if you haven't traveled a lot, that maybe you don't have anything to connect to like even think about what you might ask about or what you might wonder about. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it could be. How old were you when you were living in Hungary?
It was like first grade, something like that. Um, it was an interesting place. So I don't remember all the details of it, but it was a British school, the British Embassy school. So that we had kids from all over the world there. So I remember that my best friend was a Japanese girl, and I don't know, I loved that mix.
Yeah. Something that you really don't get access to and most of the time, unless you're in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And then I love the putting together presentations. I love that you sought out that information. That is just such a cool thing. And I think it also like explains so much about how you've continued to live your life from what I can tell. Right. In a way, it's almost like you're curious, you're interested, your parents are giving you agency as well because they're watching the presentations. Did you get to act on any of the presentations you put together?
Yeah.
Do you guys get to go to the places?
Yeah. I mean, some of them, like, I think they were very open to it. They always listened. But my parents, especially my mom, was always very, very supportive of me traveling. Very supportive. My dad, I think, always was like, she's going where? Like a little bit more skeptical about it. But my mom, I think, loved to travel when she was young around Europe. So she grew up poor, but when she started working, she would save her money and she would go on different train trips around and had like a very positive association with it. So when I was 17, we had two Brazilian girls move in across the street from us with their mom. And I became friends with them. And my mom had this idea that you should go visit them in Brazil when they go back. And so, like, she just about engineered this. Like, I think she mentioned it to the mom, and the mom was like, oh, that would be amazing because I was really good friends with, especially the older girl. And so, I ended up going for a month to Brazil when I was 17. And this is like, there's no internet, there's no phone. They're just like, off I go. And had like it was like a very kind of coming of age sort of trip, like I think it was the first time I felt really independent, felt like an adult. And I spent a month with these two sisters traveling around Brazil. They lived in the center of Brazil in this town called Uberlândia. We took a 24-hour bus to Rio. We like went up the coast. We did this whole thing with like the kind of freedom that is just like would be unheard of to give a teenager today, I feel like. I don't know if I would give it to my son. I'd have to really think about it at 17, especially like not being able to be really in a whole lot of contact. But that was part of the path, I think, that like these things are possible, that I can do it. I think it gave me a lot of like belief in my ability to just sort of navigate things. I mean, although like that return was the only flight that I've ever missed, I think, because I misread the ticket. It was like the flight left at midnight the night before, and I thought it left at noon the next day. So I like showed up at the airport at noon and they're like, hey, your flight left 12 hours ago. But like, we fixed it and made it work and I got in another flight and I mean, it all worked out. So I don't know. I think there's a dotted line that goes all the way back to like my mom being from another country and like the trips I got to do because of that and her encouragement of like this trip and these friendships and all of that. After that, when I was in college, I would work part-time jobs, University of Kansas, save all my money. And then I would look for cheap places that I could travel in the summer. So like, okay, I only have like $1,500 So I have to go somewhere where my plane ticket is no more than $600. And then I've got $800 to last me 3 weeks, and I'm going to stay in hostels. And it's that whole approach.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you definitely uh, got bitten by the travel bug and found all the ways to put all those amazing experiences together for yourself.
I did. And then after I finished college, it didn't end, right? So I think everyone sort of thought, well, you know, that's that, right? So I went to grad school. I got a master's degree in international relations in DC. And so, the right thing to do when you do that is to stay in DC. Like, that's why you go to grad school in DC, so that you do your internship there and you're set up, and like, it's all very logical. But I finished and I didn't really like DC, and I didn't really like international relations all that much. I thought I would, because I liked history and I liked traveling, and international relations sort of seemed like perfect, but I didn't really like it that much. And so after I finished, I thought I would take a little bit of a gap. And so I found a job at a ski resort in Montana as a waitress. So I worked on this winter dude ranch as a waitress for a season. And I got a free ski pass to Big Sky, the mountain there. I learned how to snowboard. I had a great winter. And then after that, I still found I wasn't ready I never worked in international relations. So after that, I started teaching English internationally. I worked in Japan for a year. I taught English in Japan, in Tokyo. I just bought a plane ticket and showed up in Tokyo. I did have a place to stay. So I had a friend who was already working in Tokyo, and I was in contact with him, and he told me, you should come. This was the time when there were lots of jobs for English. And it was when it was really popular to do the JET program, where I don't know if it's still popular, but where the Japanese government would basically hire people with college degrees for these 2-year programs teaching English. So a lot of people went that route, but I had this friend, and he was like in my ear saying, no, you don't need to do that. Just show up. You'll be fine. I was like, all right. And he said he knew this place that was sort of like a youth hostel, a long-term youth hostel for young Japanese professionals, but that there were some foreigners who were staying there and I could stay there. And so I contacted them. They told me I could have a room. It was literally like a room with a tatami mat on the floor and a shared bathroom in the hall and like a kitchen down the hall. But I showed up, and he was right. I found a job immediately. So I ended up teaching English for this travel college, which was like for these Japanese students who hadn't done well enough to get into university, really, but wanted a career. So they were going to be trained to be travel agents. And I ended up thinking that was pretty fun. So after that, I went to the Peace Corps in Albania. I taught English in France. I taught English in India. And then in India, the job that I was doing was not just English. It was working for a call center where it was like half English, but half customer service training. And it was a private company instead of just like a language school or something like that. And then I thought like, wow, maybe this could be a job. And that's how I ended up working in learning and development, which I ended up doing much more professionally, because I went from there to Dubai, where I worked for 5 years for the aluminum smelter there, doing training, like soft skills training. And that ended. Then I decided to go back to America, and I worked for 10 years in Kansas City, learning and development. So that was kind of like my most traditional corporate years. So when I say like I left the rat race, I sort of was not in the rat race that long anyway, because I was very slow to enter it, and then I was quick to leave it. So
Yeah. You had an amazing and non-linear path. Like, it's
it
been a
was
very
very
unique path.
nonlinear, for sure.
Tell me a little bit about your decision-making process as you're moving from country to country and job to job. What was that like?
It was really fun. So I loved every single place. So I'll give you one example. So going from India to Dubai, when I was in India, I heard a lot about Dubai, which sort of makes sense having lived in Dubai, because it seems like half of the subcontinent is working in Dubai. So lots of Indians had like new people that were working in Dubai or had the idea that they wanted to go work in Dubai. And Dubai sounded like the Emerald City, which it kind of is. And so I started looking for a job in Dubai. So all of these jobs that I've had, I've never been recruited. I've never been, you know, like transferred or given. It's never been anything like that. It's always been like I've looked for each of these individual jobs really in places that I thought were interesting. So I was looking for Dubai and I found a job with an American startup company that was super shady. And it ended up going, half of me still thinks that it was like, I don't know, must have been like a cover up for something because like no company could be run this poorly. But but it was so obvious that it was not going to be anything long term that while I was there, I was always looking for something else. And then it failed predictably, but I had already found this job at the aluminum smelter where I ended up working for the next like 4+ years. And that was an amazing experience for 5 years. And, I had this moment though where I knew it was time to leave Dubai. So, Dubai, have you been to Dubai?
I've never been.
But you know the reputation, right? Like everything is like all luxury and like very glitzy and stuff like that. And so it is like that. At some points, it's just ridiculous that like it's just so over the top. And so you kind of get used to it, right? But after 5 years, I was like getting irritated with some of this stuff. And one day I'm driving down Sheikh Zayed Road, which is one of the main highways that runs across. And I pull off of it and I'm at this light and I look over and there is a guy in a lime green Lamborghini with a monkey on his shoulder. And this place is absurd. This place is just ridiculous. I need to leave. I cannot do this for like one more year, one more month. And it was it. That was it. That was my moment where I was like, I'm done. And I remember calling my mom and telling her like, I'm coming back to Kansas. And she was horrified. She was like, why would you do that? You have this like really good job. You're doing tons of traveling. You're going to come back you don't have a job in Kansas. And I was like, well, I'll find one, right? And I'm done. And so she was very unsupportive. That was like the only time she's ever been unsupportive, ironically, was when I was coming back. But I did. I ended up finding a job at H&R Block, actually, and then at AMC after that. And it was a really good experience to work in kind of Midwestern corporate America. It was very different to everything I had experienced before that. And like not in a bad way, just, different.
Do you feel like the jobs that you had at the company in India and then the company in Dubai helped set you up for more corporate America type of work?
So I feel like the number one thing that I benefited from those experiences was adaptability. Like, I think moving around and like having to adjust to different cultural mores and ways that people work. Like in India, they were downright abusive to these call center agents. Like these managers would sometimes be just screaming at them on the floor, and then they would send them to me for retraining for their soft skills. Like, well, why don't you just stop yelling at them all the time? But like just kind of seeing some of the things that were considered acceptable and like having to navigate those. And I mean, I was in a classroom in India that had like big shoe boxes to catch rats.
Oh, wow.
Rats came in sometimes. It was like where they had directions on the female bathroom on how to use the toilet because it was a Western toilet and not a sit down toilet, a squat toilet. So here's how you use it. Don't do this. I mean, so like, I think having these different experiences in different places, like really taught me that there are many ways, to be and to work and that people can be happy in many different contexts. And there's not just one way. And that my job going to these places is I'm not going to change India. I'm not going to change any of these countries. So I need to adjust and figure out how to find my way. And I think that served me well and continues to serve me well. But I think it definitely serves you well in corporate America where things change and you have to be able to adjust too. Like new leadership comes in and you need to be able to like adjust your vision and not be locked into whatever your pet project was, right? You have to like go to the next thing. So I think adaptability and creativity are probably the two biggest gifts that I got from those experiences.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's so interesting to hear your story and know more about your background now and kind of knowing the leaps that you've made feel less like leaps in a way. They feel more like natural progression of your life based on kind of
Totally.
everything you've been through. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that too.
What were your goals in coming back to the United States and getting work in traditional corporations here? Did you have like a plan for yourself or an idea of what you wanted?
So I wanted to get into management. So when I was working in Dubai, I was an individual contributor. And, I actually had a moment at the aluminum company of being passed over for a management position. And it came down to kind of me and this other woman, and I didn't get it. They picked her. And then I asked why. And, I got some really good feedback. And part of it goes back to, like I mentioned, adaptability and creativity. I think I'm a creative person, but I had like my creativity a little too outwardly visible. So I had, my desk in chaos and things like that. Even though I always got everything done well, it sort of looked chaotic. And they said, you look kind of chaotic, right? And your colleague over here looks very well organized. I'm like, okay. And so when I came back to Kansas City, I wanted to move into management. And that was a very easy thing to correct, right? Like, I'm never going to have anyone tell me I look chaotic again. And so I learned that, if you look at my desktop, okay, you might see signs of chaos because my computer desktop, because like I still have that, right? But I have my own processes that are not like evident. But in terms of like anything else, like you would never know it. And I never heard that again. So I think I was able to learn from that. And then I did move into management. I became a manager at H&R Block and then a director at AMC. And so I left at the director level. And, that was something I thought about at the time because I did feel like maybe I was still quite young when I left that I could have potentially kept progressing. But it wasn't the end all and be all for me to keep reaching the pinnacle of success professionally or to see how far I could go.
Yeah. And I don't, I mean, which makes sense, but I would also add that I think for a ton of people, the director level is an exceptional place to get to. I think so many people, myself included, look at the director level and think, oh my gosh, I will have made it when I make it to director. That means I've exceeded in my corporate career. Like I've exceeded expectations. I am set, you
But I,
know?
I feel like it's like everything, right? Like whenever you get then to that, then you're like, well, or maybe I could be VP, right?
Yes.
How long? It's always sort of like never, I don't know, maybe it's like a human nature thing that we're never totally satisfied. I mean, I thought the same thing when I got to the director position. I was like, wow, I'm a director. This is a national company. This is amazing. And then after a few years, I was like, what would it take, to get to like,
Yeah.
but and at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it wasn't a strong enough pull compared to traveling, and especially traveling as a family. I traveled so much independently. I met my husband late. So I was 37 when I met him. So I had our son when I was 40. And so like being able to do that together, I think was a very,
No, hold on. Hold on a second. So are you 50 now?
yes, I just turned 50.
How is that humanly possible?
I'm 50.
You're gorgeous and flawless. I thought you were for sure.
Ah, thank you.
I was like, I'm convinced you're younger than me.
No,
Like,
no, no, no.
kudos.
Oh,
You're
thank you.
taking
Thank
very
you.
good care of your skin. I mean, you look amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So tell me, sorry, I just had to interrupt you to say that. Like, it blew my mind as soon as you told me like your timeline. How did you meet your husband?
I met him online. So I think
Okay.
it's so funny. I always imagined that, with all of these places I traveled all around the world, that I was going to marry somebody from another country, like obviously. And, that just didn't happen. I dated people in different places, but I never connected with anyone like that. And then I came back to Kansas and I didn't really know people anymore in Kansas City. So it wasn't, out and about. Like, I was like, I'm going to go online. I go online, I meet Olathe Matt. He's like the most, like American American guy, but he was in the Navy. And I think because of that, he was a submariner. He was very open to, he had traveled with the Navy and been to different, and was very open. And I remember having a conversation with him early on because when I met him, I was planning a trip by myself to go to Borneo. And I had told other people, I know, right? I had told other
I love
people
it.
about that. And like the most common reaction was like, well, where's Borneo and why? And like, okay. But nobody was like very interested in that. And then I met him and he was like, Borneo, like, what? I want to go with you. And like we were on our first date. And I was like, oh, I like this guy. And we actually ended up getting engaged in Borneo. So we did. We got engaged in Borneo. So
That's so amazing.
and then he was really on board with like, we started talking about this plan to quit our corporate jobs several years before we pulled the trigger. And he was really on board with all of it, with like, how can we do this? What would it look like? And so he's an engineer and like so like where I'm more creative, he is, a spreadsheet guy. And so he built like the spreadsheet to end all spreadsheets, tracking like everything over time and his predictions and like every, inflation and like all this crazy, like, and like figured out like, okay, well, if we invest and we save, and then if we live in low cost of living countries, and if we spend no more than X amount per year, which had to, that this is why we went to Argentina and not Switzerland, right? Then, at this point, we're going to start getting Social Security. And at this point, I'm going to start getting my naval pension. He had everything. And, we just followed it. And then we pulled the trigger when he felt like we were financially able to do it. And then we just acted very decisively. So we had everything, sold in 6 months. I don't think our friends in Kansas City really believed that we were doing this whole thing until like we really left. We had a going away party with this military vehicle at a park. We're like, this is the truck. We're really going. Yeah. And then that was it. But he was super on board and he continues to be super. I'm much more, I come up with all the travel and I work now. I've started my own travel agency. So like that is my space and I want no interference from him in it. But like he lets me do my thing. So I just organize. And now we do lots of traveling from Spain and really take advantage of the location and do like several trips a year. And it's been fun to go back to work and like do something that I just do. I love. I love the idea that somebody like looks at what I do and is like, I want to do that. I wouldn't even know where to start. And to be like, I can help you. Like it's absolutely doable. Like I am right now in the process of organizing a trip to go to Kazakhstan next March because I want to go. I saw this documentary about eagle hunting in Kazakhstan. You can have this whole experience like where you go out with an eagle hunter and I want to go and I want to do it. And everything is possible if you, number one, believe it's possible. And number two, are
Yeah.
willing to like figure out how it's possible. But I know that that can be a big hurdle for a lot of people. So like being able to help people like make these things happen has been incredibly satisfying. It's just like fun every time.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. That is amazing. And I want to hear more about eagle hunting in Kazakhstan. And I'm gonna follow up with checking out all of your information for your travel company too. And we'll talk about that too, because I really want to share it. You have done the most out of everyone that I've talked to, which is it's so early on, right? Only about 15 people so far, which I will have over 100 at some point in time, but you're the most prepared. What you guys did with your planning process is by far more than everyone I've talked to so far. So that's super cool to hear because most of the time I hear, I just did it. I just did it and I'm figuring it out as I go along.
Oh, interesting. No, we didn't just do it.
Yeah. Well, and everyone varying levels of success and varying levels of where they are. I think, and some people were like, well, I just had to get, like, I had one number I needed to make every month and I had to have like one client that was on retainer and then I had that. So I did it, but not I put this massive plan together and I knew exactly where I needed to be financially. And so, what was the decision making process like for you guys in terms of we are going to leave and we are going to leave the not only Kansas City, you knew you were going to travel, but you also knew you were going to end up out of the country, it sounds like. You knew that you weren't going to be staying in the United States. What was that process like, that conversation?
The whole plan from the beginning was to get the Italian citizenship. And so, like, we factored that time into it, right? That we knew it would take about 2 years. And so, like, to go to Argentina for that period of time, at least a minimum of 2 years made sense to make everything else happen. But we had many conversations. My husband, I think, is a little bit more likely to err on the side of conservative in terms of financial preparation. And it's a really good yin and yang because, I might have pulled the trigger earlier, but I think he was right. And so we've been able to make things work and it hasn't been financially stressful, right? But like, this goes back to also, I think, like the idea that people have about how much maybe it takes to do something like this. If you're willing to compromise in areas, like it's probably less than people think, right? So, for example, if you're willing to go to low cost of living countries, right? If you're willing, like, so for now in Spain, we live in Spain and we live 20 miles away from the sea, but we don't live by the sea, right? We bought a house in a village. The house was 120,000 euros. That's super cheap, even by Spanish standards. And then we renovated it. So we have this beautiful house that's 20 minutes from the sea. And living in a village is its own, like, crazy experience. Living in a Spanish village, that could be a whole other podcast on living in a Spanish village. It's wild. It's wild. And so, like, I feel like we're having this, like, really interesting cultural experience in Spain that's very low cost, but like where we are, most of the expats want to live by the sea. Totally understandable. The sea is absolutely beautiful there. It's sandy, it's the Mediterranean. Of course, you want to live by the sea, but it costs 3 times as much. So if you're willing to make these like compromises, okay, we live in a village 20 minutes away, we pay a third, but then we have more money to go eagle hunting in Kazakhstan. And we can drive to the sea, right? And I think everything is compromise. Everything is like, you can't have everything. So where are you willing to like flex a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And the price point, we have a vacation home in the Catskills area of New York, very affordable in comparison to if we wanted to have a vacation home in a different mountainy area, right?
Yeah.
So 100% agree with what you're saying. It makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Everything is compromise and choices, prioritizing.
Yeah. Um, I want to ask you this question, take it or leave it. I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask it because I have so much more I really want to get through as well with you. But what made you decide to live outside of the United States? Like, what made you decide to permanently relocate?
Oh, I don't know that it's permanent. We might come back to the US at some point. Well, I'll tell you what it wasn't. It wasn't political. Okay. So I know that there are so many expats who talk about that, who leave for those reasons. That wasn't it for us at all. It was because the world is an interesting place. And I feel like I want to see it. I want to experience it. I want to experience it with my family. I want our son to grow up seeing that there are many different ways of living, that there are many different ways of being a kid in this world, and that it's totally normal and that it's a beautiful thing. And so it's for curiosity. It's because the world is interesting. And why not? It wasn't to run away from anything. I love the United States. I'm so happy to be back in Lawrence for the summer. Every time I come back to the United States, I appreciate I appreciate this country. I think you appreciate your own country more by leaving it because you see everything that's convenient. Like, if I go to a grocery store in Spain and I want Advil, I can't get it. I have to go to the pharmacy. You can't just buy medicine. They don't incorporate those things. They're in different places. So, like, these little things, you go back and I can communicate with ease. I mean, I speak Spanish now, but not like I speak English. And, everything is easy. And like all the little things I know how to navigate this country perfectly, right? And you're always a little bit out of step in another country because there are just so many things. It takes a long time to learn it. So it was that. It was really just for, I don't know, for the fun of seeing other places.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And your kiddo is 10. Is he in a school in the village that you're in?
So he was. Finding the right school for him was a little bit of a journey. We picked this location in Spain because it had an international school that on paper I thought I would really like. And I did a big search. There was a spreadsheet for schools too. And did a big search and found this school. And it ended up like being like a little bit more emphasis on like the facilities and things like that than it really was about the program. The program was kind of a mess, a lot of teacher turnover. None of the parents were happy. And so then we put him in the village school. We thought like, well, okay, let's like experience real Spanish village life. Spanish village life is intense. So these kids, first of all, it's in a third language. He'd already learned Spanish in Argentina, but the village school was primarily in Valenciano, which Spain has several regional languages, and we live in a region that has another language. And the villages are really strong on preserving local languages. He dived right into the school. He learned Valenciano, which is basically Catalan, in a few months. But I think integrating socially into the village school was a lot more challenging. These kids had been friends since they were babies. Their parents were all like, my dad is your cousin, it was all very tight. And for him to penetrate that as a foreigner, I think was not easy. So, like, he was there for a year and a half. And after a year and a half, he didn't really have any close friends. And we decided to put him in a British school, and he's super happy. So now he's like kind of found his place, but that wasn't easy to kind of find the right place. And so he's growing up as they call it third culture kids who grow up not in their home culture, but they're not necessarily like native in their second culture either. Right. So he's never going to be a Spanish kid, but then they can go back to their home country and they can feel a little out of step. So they call them third culture, which has many gifts, but it can also be challenging. And it's one of the reasons that I like him to do summer camp here for 2 months in the summer, to not feel like weird when he's back in the US.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, and also I think, some of the reasons I've heard that people leave, which to your point is not why you left, but the political concerns and the safety of America. It also explains why you're totally comfortable putting him in a camp. Our kids obviously in camp. We talked about that earlier, but that makes sense. And the fact that you found a school is amazing. And I know it's so hard as a parent and as a mom because you want to give your kid the very best experience and the very best education and the very best everything you can. And so when you see them struggling and not feeling like they belong, it's so hard. So I'm so
But
happy that you found something.
the upside of that is that like he's like 10 years old and he's like really resilient and adaptable. So he never, and I really think, well, how do you develop resilience? You develop resilience by suffering a little bit. Hopefully not too much, but like a little bit, right? And so like in the village school, it was never like he wasn't bullied. He wasn't like outcast. He still played tag every day with the kids. He went to a couple of birthday parties, but he just was never like inner circle and he kind of knew it, right? He knew that he was sort of outside of things. But I think like these experiences of being in another place and being sort of the other, right? Being like an outsider, not being part of the in group, having to learn the language, like all of these things have built in him. I think these things have been challenging for him, but not so challenging that they've been like debilitating or depressing or like have destroyed his spirit. They just seem to have made him very resilient. So like he's willing to like go into any new situation, and he never complained about like not really having any close friends in the village, but he's super happy now that he has all these friends at his new school. So I think it's going to be a gift for him as he kind of goes and navigates through life to have that resilience and flexibility to know that he can go through things that are a little difficult sometimes. And like there's another side to it and that you come out the other side. So my hope is that that serves him well in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever had to have, I'm just curious, because my kiddo, he tends to be sensitive, sensitive to things. Do you ever have those conversations with him? Has he ever felt that way? You said he didn't really feel like an outsider or anything, but just curious about the
So
parenting style. I'm wondering if that has something to do with it.
not really. So my tendency is to like over talk about these things. So like, do you feel okay that you don't have any friends in school? I mean, like I practically say it like that. And my husband will hear me and he'll be like, you are creating a complex. Let's stop it. So he's fine. He's not complaining. He's like, he's totally fine. So I had to like really have to work on managing myself because, you feel so much for your child, right? And like, I would see that he would like walk out of school every day by himself and like worry for him. But he was fine. He was just, kind of didn't necessarily realize maybe that he wasn't that close to all these kids. Although when he went to the new school and now he's invited all these sleepovers and things like that, he did say that he didn't have any friends at the other school. Where while he was at the village school, he did talk about, I'm friends with so and so and so and so. But when he realized sort of the difference at his new school, then he kind of recognized maybe what he hadn't had. But at that point, he didn't care because he had all these friends. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that
but
makes
yeah,
sense.
I have to
Oh, that's awesome.
manage myself not to make not to like make things more of a big deal than they are to him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard. Being a parent is hard.
It's hard. It's hard. You want them to be happy, but they're never going to be happy at every
Yeah,
moment. So,
that's so true. All right, let's go back to the leaving process and you like quitting your corporate job and deciding to travel for a while. Is there anything that you wish you had known before you left?
not really. I mean, I think one thing maybe that I wish I'd done differently is that when my boss approached me about continuing to work part-time remotely, I said yes because, that sounded great. And then that was obviously good financially for our plan because that was a bonus that wasn't factored in. But it ended up being so difficult, to have the access. And it added a layer of stress for sure to be on the road trying to find signals, knowing that I, wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing because I just literally could not connect. That I sort of wish I just said like, I appreciate it, but I probably just need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And again, I will say I've heard that from a couple other folks. So it just feels like when you made the decision, you made the decision. But I think we're so, we want to help others out. We want to be people pleasers to some degree, and
Yeah.
having that extra financial incentive it's a good thing. So, but you're not alone in that, for what it's worth. So I think that's really
Um,
great advice to share with folks too. Like once you know, you know.
yeah. And you just can't be all things, right? You can't be like as good as you were at your corporate job when you're sitting in your camper trying to get like a signal on the road. It's not going to happen. So like even if you're able to kind of like continue to some level, you're definitely going to be worse. At least I was. I'm sure I was worse. And like, is that really how you want to like leave your corporate career? Like,
I totally can picture it. I can
well, it
totally
was
picture you trying to get like
disa-
service. Like,
disaster. Disaster.
yeah,
Not recommended.
it's great advice. I feel even weird asking you this question just based on your background, but were you scared at all about leaving?
No, no. I think like one of the things that I read on these different expat forums a lot is people will post about going sight unseen to a place. And then the expats will flood in with responses of like, what a terrible idea that is, and how naive you are, and how stupid you are. I've never been to any of the places in advance where I've moved. Not one. I've never went to DC before I went to grad school there. I didn't go to any single, like, what a luxury. You're going to like go scope it out in person. I didn't ever have money for that. And so, like, I think you do your research and you like know that you're going for an experience that's going to have ups and downs and challenges and that you're ready to navigate it. And you just go. And like, I was never scared. I think it's exciting to go and like have some unpredictability and like, I don't know. I think having traveled so much all my life, I feel a very deep confidence that whatever comes my way, I can figure it out. which is one of the things that I want to gift for my son, to like for him to believe that about himself. I mean, yeah, things can happen like the pandemic, things that are just unpredictable. And like, we didn't know how the Argentine government would react. So I say that I can handle whatever, but if they're suddenly a military state and I'm in the middle of it, that's a lot to figure out. But you still sort of, I don't know, for me, I trusted in myself enough that I didn't worry for that.
Yeah. Well said. Such a great mindset to have too, which I love that. And I love that we're going to be able to share this with people.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You know that moment when you realize that you can't keep living the way that you've been living? You've probably heard several of my guests talk about that already. If that resonates with you and you're feeling like you're in that moment, you're in luck. I've created a 30-day program that's going to help you become unstuck, reconnect with your joy, reconnect with yourself, and reconnect with your values. We're going to work together to figure out your next step, your vision, and your path forward. This is an invitation for you to live the life of your dreams that truly lights you up. Visit 101waysout.com to get started. What was your life like? I mean, so much is so different, but let's just say where you are now. What was your life like before, when you were working for your corporate job, your AMC job in Kansas City, to where you are now working for yourself and living in Spain? How much has it
Oh,
changed?
gosh, a lot. I mean, so my corporate job at AMC was, very office based. So I really needed to be at the headquarters, you know, every day. I always tried to keep it pretty, 8:30 to 5 or 9 to 5 because I had a really young child. And like, I always felt leaving at 5 o'clock, I would pick him up. He was going to this fabulous uh, preschool called Bambini Creativi. I don't know if it's still there, but I would pick him up at 5:30, which was like the extended hours already. And he would be the only kid there, or he'd be there with one other kid. And I already felt leaving at 5, like, I don't know, like I was sneaking out early because like everyone else would still be there. And I'm like, I have to go. I have to pick up my kid, and I don't want to pick him up past 5:30. He's already like the only kid there in his preschool, hanging out with his teacher. I don't know where everybody else's parents were, but like, and apparently not working. And then he would be in bed by like 8:30 or something. So it just felt like so little time with him. And then trying to like maintain everything else. Like, we had a really big house, and trying to keep this, like, I think it was like 6,000 square feet or something. This like huge house, clean and with in order, and to exercise and like spend time with everybody, just felt like I didn't do anything else. And so to compare that with now, I have my travel agency and I actually work a lot like you tend to do for yourself, but it's all on my terms. I go to coffee shops or I work from home. We just came back from Spain to Kansas, and we went through Iceland for a week. And I can, plan to be in Iceland and be very low on social media, and let clients know that like, okay, I'll get back to you on this, but it's going to be next week. And everyone is fine with that because they're not planning to travel in 2 weeks. Usually they're planning for like at least a few months out, as long as they know. So like I have total flexibility, and I love, love, love to be able to work on stuff that I think is interesting. So like not just travel, but like the kind of travel that like I'm planning, for example, 25th anniversary trip for a couple to go horseback riding in the Sahara for 4 days. I did this trip last year, and I remember thinking at the time, other people would love this. They just don't know about it. And so this couple is like the perfect couple for it. They're totally into it. And so to like plan this sort of experience as opposed to like Disney or something like that, right, has been just amazing to find as a niche. So it's very, very satisfying. I mean, I liked what I did at AMC too, because it was leadership. So it was helping people sort of look at themselves in the mirror and think about like, where am I holding myself back? So that was actually, of all my corporate jobs, I enjoyed that one the most because I like that introspection. I like doing that for myself, and I like helping other people do that. But this is just like fun in a way that none of my corporate jobs have been.
Understandable. That is really cool though, being able to help people and develop them and all of that. Just one follow-up question. First question is on your mindset side, because you mentioned that you like to be introspective and kind of see what's holding you back. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what kind of roadblocks have you encountered, maybe self-imposed or otherwise, that you've learned how to navigate or push through to get to the life that you're living now?
So I've had a lot of support around me. So I don't know that I've had a huge number of roadblocks, but like there are always voices in your ear, right? So like I mentioned my mom's reaction when I told her I was leaving Dubai and, hearing that she was very strong about it, right? Hearing that from somebody that had been super supportive thinks this is a terrible idea. Is this a terrible idea? But then I did it anyway, right? So, because I just felt comfortable that I could navigate it. But I think that can be a challenge, like the voices of other people. And so if I had that as somebody who's had very supportive people around me, I know that other people who don't have anyone necessarily who thinks it's a great idea and who can have people telling them it's crazy and it's irresponsible. Oh, and like, by the way, like the damage you're going to do to your kid. So, for example, we had this wonderful preschool that I mentioned, and I told the director that we were leaving and we bought this crazy military truck and we're going to go up to Alaska and then we're going to go to South America. And she said, well, that's great, but it's going to have a negative impact on your son, and that like he's probably going to it's going to impact him, like how he develops, and like, what are you basing this on? Like, like all the people that you've known that have like gone to travel around the world in a military truck with their like, I mean, and so it was just sort of like this gut response that like it's somehow going to be damaging. I mean, like I imagine this sort of alternate reality for our son where he had like the same friends since he was in preschool that some kids have. And I can see how that's a beautiful thing too, but he has other things, like he's not going to have that, and I'm totally at peace with that.
That's a fantastic example. I was going to say, our kid does online school because we just want him to be able to have the flexibility, and we travel a lot. And
Oh,
it's
do you?
been met with
You tell me
very
about that.
interesting reactions. Yeah, we like I have gone to a lot of different conferences, or we've gone to places for my husband's work, and we want to bring our kid with us, and we want him to just be there with us and go on these adventures together. So we also did a 40-day road trip a couple years ago that we
40.
wouldn't have been able to do. Yeah, it was 40 days. And
Oh,
then,
love it.
thank you. And then we just got back. We have an RV, so we just got back from 2 months on the road visiting 12 different national parks.
Amazing.
And it's interesting because when you tell people about it, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, because some people say, wow, you guys are the best parents ever. Your kid's having the best life. He's getting to do all these things and spend time with you guys, and he's learning in the real world. And then you have people say, well, how's he going to make friends?
Uh-huh.
And isn't that socialization hard for him? And I look at him, and then, I start to worry, but then I look at him and he is so confident going into a restaurant or a shop, or just casually talking to people, no matter where we are hiking. He's very good with people, and he shares his joy, and he brings joy into all of these moments that I don't think you would normally have a kid of his age, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old now, just turned 8 a couple days ago. I wasn't like that as a kid. I grew up in the same tiny town all the way through high school, went to college in the big city next to the town. And I was so shy and so introverted. And so when I see him just existing in the world and flourishing in the world in the way that it appears he is, it gives me a bit of comfort and joy to know that even though he's not having that experience that you described of growing up with these kids since preschool and having that baked in community, that hopefully he's having something that's at least as good, if not better, in some ways.
I love that. I relate to that so much that we heard so much of that from people about our son, like that we're just dooming him to this life of like no friends, which I did think about when he was in the village. I was like, they're right. What have I done? But like overall, he's the same. He's super confident. He's like, he's super confident. He'll talk to anyone. He's like very like, I don't know, sure of himself. And like, where does that come from? Right. I don't know. I think it comes from like being out of your comfort zone, realizing that you can interact with people and like it goes well, and it's not safe all the time. It's not the same kids that you've known your whole life, and you're fine and you make friends and you find your way. And like, you can do it again next time. He told me that making friends
Yeah.
was his superpower. I love it.
Oh my God, what a great
I
superpower.
love it.
That's so fantastic. That says a ton. It says a ton. Everyone that has ever doubted what you're doing should just hear him say that. And I think it's going to all go away.
Exactly. They find their way.
Okay, my next question is a bit of an interesting one, given you guys are so prepared for what you've done. And so you may have a different answer, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway, and you can answer it however feels
Okay.
right. How has your income changed since you work in a corporate to what you're doing now, and what has that meant for you guys?
Well, it's gone down a lot. um, and I'm in the travel business now, but it's only been a year. And the way that it works is that I don't get paid until people travel, except for planning fees, which I get right away. But so my ramp up to be like truly financially solvent is probably like 4 years. And my husband's not working at all, except, well, he helps me with the business. He manages like the accounting, which is his
That makes
expertise.
sense.
Yeah, so it's gone down a lot. But because I think we, and especially my husband, were so thoughtful about the financial preparation, and our investments have like done well for us. So there have been periods where they've dropped because like the stock market has dropped, and we are invested in like the total stock market mostly. And we just like pull back a little bit when that happens. And then when the stock market is back up again and like we're kind of back where we want to be, then I'm planning trips for us to go eagle hunting in Kazakhstan. And, the world is back as it should be. But I feel like, we just sort of like retract or expand a little bit depending on where things are at, because, we want to stay kind of around a certain point, and we've been able to do that. And also, like, we planned very, very early on. We invested in a 529 for our son's education when he was like a few months old, and then added to. So this was all again like very long term planning, right? That like the plan was that while we were working, we would front load his 529 as much as possible, because that we would probably stop adding to it mostly once we left. But because we did it so early and kind of aggressively, it's really grown a lot. So, we feel very comfortable with where he's at. He's going to private school now, but it's so much cheaper than the US. Like, so in Spain, it's like $9,000 a year for his tuition. I
Wow.
mean, and, everyone in Spain thinks it's really expensive. Like, we paid more than that for preschool in Kansas City,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. I know we had a nanny for our kiddo, and it's not cheap to have kids. It's not cheap to have kids in the United States, that's for sure.
No. No, my brother lives
That's I
In Boston, and he
Ooh.
tells me like, yeah, like the private school costs are like college. I mean,
Oh, yeah. I look up this, I mean, even Pembroke here is 20 something thousand, so
we
or
looked at
something like that.
Pembroke
It's a
when we lived
lot.
in Kansas City. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think you guys are doing it right. Do you have an ultimate vision for what you'd like your life to look like?
I mean, this is what I'd like my life to look like. This is like, I mean, I'm totally doing what I want to be doing. I'm working in what I like to be working in. I'm traveling places I want to be traveling. I'm living in a place that I want to live. So I think it's just continuing to do what we're doing is the plan.
Yeah, I love it. Amazing. If you had to choose between happiness or success, which would you choose, and has it changed over time?
So I think that the two are interrelated for me, so that there's no success without happiness. And there's, in some ways, maybe there's not happiness without success. But to be able to be successful for me is that I'm doing what makes me happy, that I'm able to do that financially, that I'm able to like have the lifestyle and the experiences that I want, that I'm spending my time in the way that I want to spend it, with the people that I want to spend it, in the place that I want to spend it. And those things are completely intertwined.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. If you had advice for people that are trying to figure out what to do with their lives or hear your story and really fall in love with it and want to follow in your footsteps, what would you tell them to do?
I would tell them, first of all, to assume that it's possible and like to start with that as like the core assumption that this is possible and that what I have to do now is just figure out how to do it. And to do that, I would recommend first painting a very vivid picture in their mind or whoever they're working with, like their partner, of what that would look like. So when they imagine this different lifestyle, where are they? What are they doing with their time? What kind of a place are they living in? Like in as much detail as possible. Because once you have the detail, then you can start figuring out, like, okay, what would that piece take to realize? What would that piece take to realize? And you can start researching each of those different components and then have an accurate idea that, okay, I don't want to just live in Argentina. I want to live in this town in Argentina and I'm going to enroll my son in this school and it costs this amount per month. And I know that I can rent a house in this neighborhood and then it's going to cost roughly this amount. And then the more you do that, the more it comes from like something up in the sky to something like much more down to reality that you recognize, like, I can do this. It has this cost attached. Now I just have to figure out how to make sure that I have all of these pieces accounted for in my plan.
Mm, that is
So
fantastic.
yeah, that's my best advice is to like, but number one, the core assumption is critical because if you don't believe in your heart of hearts that it's possible and that there's a path through and you just have to find it, you will never get there because there are so many voices in your head that are going to tell you it's irresponsible, it's crazy, it's stupid, it's fill in the blank, right? All the reasons why it's a terrible idea.
Are you speaking from experience or from what you've seen people go through?
Well, I mean, both.
Yeah.
we, I had definitely when I was younger, especially, and I didn't stay in DC and I didn't kind of get the jobs at the right time. Yeah, I heard a lot of stuff like that, but I didn't care because I wasn't hurting anybody. I wasn't asking for money for anybody. I was working in jobs that, paid for themselves, paid for me to live there. Like, wasn't I?
What strikes me as so interesting about you and your story and your life is that it feels like the beliefs that you have, um, and maybe I'm wrong here, so please set me straight if I am. But it seems to me like you've kind of always had this belief that it's possible. Like,
Yeah.
and anything you've shared, I really haven't heard you ever say, "Oh, I didn't think I would be able to do that." It seems like you've just been like, "Yeah, I can do that." Is that true?
I mean, I think it is like, and that probably just comes from my parents and the approach that they took with me and my brother. But it carries through to this day that I really believe that I can probably figure most things out. And so that carries through now to traveling. So I keep coming back to this eagle hunting in Kazakhstan because I have that on my mind right now. But like an idea like that, like I- it's a good example of it, I think, because like you sort of hear the idea, but then you think like, well, how do you do that? Right? How would I participate in that? And then, start researching it and finding the path. But like, I believe that there's a path. I just have to find it,
Oh my god, I love it.
not have it be like a mass market experience. Like, I want to hire someone to take my family out to go do this. And also, people tend to think it's a lot more expensive than it is, but like, these sorts of experiences are not necessarily like I'm planning this horseback riding safari in the Sahara for this couple. And they were shocked at how cheap it was. And they're gonna be
Same
out with
here.
a local. Yeah, it's like 800 some dollars a person for 4 days of
That's
horseback
great.
riding in the Sahara with your camping in, like, these Berber tents, which are, like, standing tents, and, like, your horse and your meals and your private guide. It's super reasonable. I mean, it's not necessarily that these experiences are more expensive. It's just, like, you have to, do a little footwork.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely more memorable and unique than, like you said, going to a Disney park or Disney cruise or something like that, and something that I feel like pushes the boundaries in some ways of what it means to be human, which I don't know about you, but, like, I know for me, when I live like that, when I go on those like we did, And this is like a little bit of a maybe luxury version, but it's fine. We did this lodge to lodge trek in Peru a couple years back.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I love
have
that.
you? Yeah,
No,
it was amazing.
I did the tent version in Peru, and then I heard years later that there was a lodge to lodge version, which I couldn't have afforded when I did the tent version. And I remember thinking, like, I have to go back and do this again and go lodge to lodge.
Yeah. Yes, and you can do it in 2 years with your son because he'll
Oh
be old
my
enough.
gosh, amazing.
So that'll be a good plan. But the idea of being there and being immersed in the culture and also doing something that's a little bit hard, like you're hiking, I don't know, 10 miles a day. It's a little hard. It's a little uncomfortable. You're in every kind of weather, but it just feels like, oh my gosh, yes. You just feel alive. So it seems like you're
Totally.
building incredible experiences. So,
Yeah,
okay, I have two more questions and then I want to talk about your travel company and I want to learn about how we can share that with people. But let me ask you these last two questions because then I'll be mad at myself if I don't. What's the most liberating decision that you've made since you've left your corporate job that you would not have been able to make otherwise?
the most liberating decision. Maybe going back to work, ironically. So, like, I was out of work for, you know, several years after I left AMC, and I only started the travel company last year, so it was a good, 4 years or something, which seems like that in itself would be the most liberating thing, but I think, like, actually what was really liberating was, like, realizing that I could go to work and do exactly what I wanna do, and like, it doesn't have to be, like, corporate or nothing, right? Because I found, like, okay, like, I'm reading lots of books, I'm doing lots of yoga, I'm, going to lots of, like, brunches with my friends, but, like, I have a lot of time and I wanna do something, and I think that was liberating to be like, "Wait a minute, I can," and not just that I can do this kinda, like, work and travel, but, like, "Oh, so, like, it's a good idea to have a niche? Oh, so, like, I can make my niche, like, exactly the kind of travel that I think is really cool? Like, wow, okay, like, there are other people who wanna do that? Really?" That was liberating.
That's so cool. Uh, okay, I'm gonna let you in on something that I think there's a relationship here. I've always been super passionate about traveling. Thankfully, I had a cousin when I have a cousin who was a flight attendant when I was quite young. And so he would always come back home with all of these grand stories because we grew up very poor in like rural Texas. Didn't ever leave Texas until I was much older. And he would come home with all of these amazing stories of Egypt and Paris and London and Brazil, you name it, right? And I was like, wow, there's an amazing world out there. I have to go see it, right? I was just so inspired. And fast forward, ended up working as a programmer, living in New York City. And I wasn't so happy with my job. I was just not loving my corporate experience. And so, I was working for an airline. It was a great airline. It was really fun doing all of their web development. And I thought, I really should look for a job in the field that I'm most passionate about, which is luxury adventure travel. So I just started Googling luxury
No
adventure travel
way!
companies. Yes. And I just like sent my resume to like every single company, ended up working at one of them for a year, short amount of
Which one?
time. It's called Austin. It's actually called Austin Adventures now. It used to be called Austin Lehman Adventures. But I got to go to Montana and go to some dude ranches there. So when you said that you used to work at one, I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if it was that one. I don't remember the
Which
name of
one?
it. So I don't remember.
The one I worked at was, Lone Mountain Ranch in Big Sky.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I have to find a picture and I'll send it to you if I can find one. But it was amazing. And I got to go to South Africa for the first time and just kind
Wow.
of put together like all the promotional content for the marketing launch of that tour. So what you're doing to me, I'm like, this is so freaking cool. Like you're so I'm like I'm obsessed with what you're doing and I definitely want to learn more about it. And I definitely want to see about trips that you might put together for our family. I'm not even kidding. Okay.
I'm in. Luxury adventure is where it's at. That, like, you can be
Right?
comfortable and, like, have
Yes.
these amazing experiences.
Yes, yes, my husband knows, he's like 'cause we talk about, like, going hiking and backpacking, and I'm like, "I'll give it a shot." I'm not a camper. I'm an acid I'm a super love hiking. I do not love sleeping in a tent. I just
I'm
don't
the
love it.
same. I just hate tent. I get claustrophobic in a
Yeah.
tent, but I love hiking.
Yeah. Yeah, so if I can hike and have, like, a nice place to stay, I'm golden. That's all I need. I have a
It's
friend that's,
not
like,
too
an
much to
avid
ask.
backpacker, though. Right? It's normal. It's totally, totally cool.
Totally normal.
Okay, my last official question is, what is saving your life right now?
What is saving my life right now? I'm gonna say my son. And so, like, I have found it to be like so rejuvenating and positive to like see the world through his eyes. And like traveling has taken on like a whole fresh new lens to travel with him. Like another podcast topic, but like traveling with children when they won't remember it. I have so many thoughts on this that like I think it's the thing to do because it's so formative. But we've traveled with him since he was a baby and like seeing, these places and seeing him interact and makes me look at things differently and slows down my pace. So I feel like, I don't know, that's been like a new lease on life. It's been amazing.
That's wonderful. Honestly, as much of a weirdo as this is going to make me sound, one of the main reasons I wanted to have a child was because I wanted to see all of those fresh things again. Like I just
Yeah.
wanted to experiencing it a different way.
Yeah, you like relive it all, right? And
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I
I
totally
think you
get
should
that.
make that podcast. You should do that
Mm.
podcast.
Well, yeah. I want to just go on someone else's podcast and not it's a lot of got my hands full.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. It might be out there because it is a real thing. I mean, I have a picture of our kiddo. My husband just had a birthday, so I was pulling together all of these old photos of us traveling to different places, and one of them is our son, just a year old. Actually, do I have it here? I'll show you. And he's on a little toy horse, and behind him are the Swiss Alps. That kid does not remember that at all. So it's
No.
cool to be able to like pull it up and say, "Look what you did. You had all these cool adventures, and we can go back now that you're older. We can go back and we can do that again. But you've been to all these amazing places, and I don't know. As parents, to be able to have that experience together is so neat. You know?
Yeah, and they're being shaped by it. Like they're being shaped by it, whether they remember it or not, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. If people want to learn more about the amazing things that you're doing and want to follow your journey and talk to you about your awesome trips that you're putting together, how can they find you?
So I have a website, niveaustravel.world. That's Niveus. And I'm also on Instagram at Niveus Travel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
No, I don't think so. This has been so much fun.
This has been 101 Ways Out. I so appreciate you taking your valuable time and spending it with me. I hope something in this episode made you feel seen, understood, and inspired. If you're looking for support taking the next step in your life, visit 101waysout.com and check out our 30-day program. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on all of your favorite podcast platforms and follow our social media. Spread the word. I look forward to seeing you next week and continuing to explore what lights you up.